everybody. Let's start off like we always do. Give me a 5-5 if you can hear us and see us. That would be appreciated. And I know it takes about 15 seconds on the delay on this channel. So we'll check that out. And then I'll get set up here. And we're going to play a song as we normally do here. I think it may be appropriate for the discussion. And we'll go from there. All right, guys, can you hear us? Can you see us? We've had a challenge with the Zoom Rumble connection lately. So let's see how that's working today. It takes a while to get going, but then everything seems to work fine after that. I see us. So now can you guys hear us? I hear and see you. Awesome. Beautiful, guys. All righty. So we have Matt Roeske here today. Did I get your name right, Matt?
It's all good. It's Roeske, but it's
Roeske. And I even think Lisa helped you out and told me how to sound, and I still screwed it up. That's all right. That's par for the course. Matt Roeske. There we go. Okay, let's play in a song, guys, and we'll get rolling here. I think this will be fun. And I'm so excited. Matt, thank you for putting up with us, doing our little homework there. We appreciate it. How are things going with you?
Things are good. You know, it's toasty. It's 90 again. So it's things are good. Can't complain.
It's toasty. I love that. So let's help the viewers out, and if we can give kind of a background of what maybe what you did before and what got you to what you're doing today, because I started to click on your links and I'm like, wow, this guy, you've got your hands in a lot of pots. I know we're going to mainly talk about two subjects today, but if you can kind of give your background, I'd appreciate that.
Of course. So I was in the health and fitness world for a long time. I saw a lot of things, from people squatting 1,000 pounds, deadlifting thousands of pounds, and doing record numbers, and watching people do all kinds of feats of strength. And it was all energy, right? Where you get pumped up and did the voices, you know, everything, the energy, the music. There was no Wi-Fi. We didn't have any technology like that. So there was a lot of energy. And I didn't understand the energy that I was surrounded by in my gym at that time. And when I sold the gym and closed the gym, or when I sold the gym, I moved out to Arizona, and I started getting more into holistic health, understanding the dangers of GMOs, understanding how our food supply, our water supply is all being, obviously messed with, and just kind of going down so many different rabbit holes of different topics, from their educational system to our medical system, whatever it may be. And as I got in through all of that, I started getting into different types of mushrooms, understanding like chaga mushroom, lion's mane, cordyceps. I started connecting more, going hiking more, started getting into energy healing and understanding like everything about energy. And I actually did a Akashic reading with a lady, and she told me my whole entire life story in the matter of about 30 minutes over the telephone. And she was actually in Ireland at the time, and it blew my mind. And she basically said, what I want you to do as your homework is go look into crop circles. And I told her, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with that, where this is going to lead me. And it just kind of led me down every single path of understanding energy, electroculture, pyramids, Tartaria, old world, antennas. I mean, every single thing, every book has led to an additional amount of information leading up till today. And then as our page we're big about just providing solutions on multiple ways and getting rid of all the fear, right? Because we're always bombarded with the fear, but there are solutions to things. So I've moved away from what I used to be connected into to now try to make as many solutions as I can, and just kind of a flip of the switch. But that's kind of the general story. That's the general story.
No, that's beautiful. I've actually run and owned health clubs before, so I'm familiar with what you're talking about. In fact, I don't know if you remember the hammer strength machines, right? And then they had it's kind of a deadlift machine, but we called it a donkey because the way you would kind of lift it like a wheelbarrow. and we had a weightlifting contest on that. And I was probably 185 pounds. And because of energy, I beat a guy that weighed 410 pounds. And it was purely based on, it was all based on emotion and getting everything to work together at the same, literally all the muscles were working together at the same time. And it blew him away. I mean, we had to put another guy that was 190 on top of the rack just because there was not enough weight on there, right? And this is not about me, but it's about the energy force that we can actually tap into. Blew me away at the time. And then later on, my kids and I were working out in the garage, and my little boy, he was like 6 years old. He didn't know any better. So he picked up a 45-pound bar with no weights on it. And he's just like, wham. And the other ones are blown away, right? Because they would have, our mind screws with us at a young age, and we start thinking we're limited when we're really almost limitless. So I'm very exciting.
Yeah, and that's the thing I saw. I saw crazy feats of strength of things, just high energy, and basically people are connected, right? That's what they don't teach us, that the energy is always existing around us, and that we actually sync up to one another when we're around one another, right? So if you go into a place and there's LED lights and a lot of Wi-Fi and all this synthetic material, right? The old machines, like you just said, were made out of heavy duty iron and steel. They use brass, they use all these different metals. Now they use all this cheap plastic, rubber, and all this deadening forces, these materials with that deaden the life force. So then now you have this switch. So now when you actually go into that place, it actually lowers your energy too, and you don't realize that your terrain is impacting that. And, as I learned about all that, then I started doing a lot of traveling, like I said, into nature, and then connecting the dots into the nature or the energy that's in the nature as well. And it's all there. But, if we're not picking up onto it, we stay disconnected from it. And like you said, then don't understand how you could do something that somebody else is, let's say, 200 pounds heavier than you can do it. And, and that's that chi, or like when you get into martial arts, using the mind and connecting into that the essence of all your whole body and all your energy.
That's true. And my background was martial arts, so I had an unfair advantage in regards to that. You said something that fascinated me. I never even thought about. So you're saying now with all the rubber and plastic that they use, it literally reduces our energy because we're not connecting the way that we should. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So there was a great book by Dr. John Ott called Health and Light. And his book went into explaining that you use three things to weaken society. One is artificial frequencies, which is radio frequencies. The other ones is artificial lighting, right? So you have all the LEDs and all these fake lights that are now in there. And then you have the plastic clothes, which is the polyester and polyurethane and all of those. Mm-hmm. Those three things alone can actually weaken our entire body. And they used to do muscle testing where they would take, for example, the hand, and they would make somebody, for example, put on a polyester shirt. They'd press down, their hand would instantly go down, because the muscle test shows that they've instantly became weaker upon placing that attire onto their body. So if you think of the gyms nowadays, if we look at the gyms currently versus the gyms back in the day, right? A lot of them were outside. You had the sunlight. They were all, heavy duty materials, and there weren't the frequencies. So all of those things are diminishing the life force when you go in before you've even started working out. So a lot of people with chronic pain, the chronic pain can actually be related to the terrain in which they're working in, because of the energy that's in that area could actually be causing the chronic illnesses that people are suffering from. And that was shown in the book, The Invisible Rainbow, which goes more into the frequencies that are all around us and how they can actually be diminishing our health over time.
Wow, this is fascinating. Do you feel like this is the intent, or it's just a matter of it's the least expensive way for businesses to put out things, or maybe both?
I mean, when we get into it, I really see it as an intent, right? Like we can be there's so many technologies which came out which are much safer. And in that book I was telling you about with Dr. John Ott, he learned everything about light and light spectrum and how it impacts us and animals and birds and bees. And he showed this all in the 1960s and 1970s,
Mhm.
but nobody wanted to listen. And I feel like that's kind of the predicament that we have today, where it becomes part of society. And then we're saying, well, I mean, I don't know if it's doing that much, but then you don't have a control where you don't have those things until you actually go into an area and you're like, wow, I feel completely different not being exposed to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, that's, I think, so definitely the intent. And then also too, if the LED lights, you know, and all these lights and all these things are impacting the brain, you know, that creates another industry in which they can make money off.
Of course.
So LED lights are linked to cataracts and hurting the eyes, right?
Yeah.
So now you just opened up a whole new, you know, area in which
Mhm.
cataracts go up, and then now you have this big business on cataracts, and you create these new things which never existed in the first place, or at least at that large of a scale, and then that's why I see it as the intent is purposeful.
So I've been studying a little bit lately about hemp. And to me, it seems like most of the things short of the LED lights that you mentioned could be replaced by something like hemp. And would that take care of a lot of the problems, because that's a more natural?
Well, we could be using a lot of different light spectrums that are just a lot safer, and that's related into infrared UVs and things like that. It's just what we're doing is we're just playing an experimentation game. And that's kind of what it is. And the whole climate, saving the climate and telling us about saving the climate, you know, when a LED light breaks, and if you are injured by them, right, you have to call in a person with a mercury mask, and you have to turn off your air conditioning, and you have to evacuate the premises, and you have to go through this whole, it's like a 40-step process before even sending in a submission to say that you want to sue for damages based on LED lights. And this is all on the GE website. They have it all listed. It's like a 25-step process before you can even say that you've been injured by these bulbs. So if we really look at if these bulbs are going to save things, or the climate or the earth or us, right, then why is there a 50-step process before even I can submit an injury?
Yeah,
We
right.
could be using, like you said, safer alternatives. Incandescent bulbs. Incandescent bulbs were used since the dawn of time, and now they're trying to get rid of them as of August 1st, 2023. You
Mhm.
know, and we've been using this bulb for a long period of time. And someone told me back in the day, the Edison bulb actually could last up to 100 years, but they dimmed that down and made it only last about a year or two because
Yeah,
they realized nobody was buying light bulbs.
right. What they did is they thinned the filament that's in it. So I don't know what the diameter was, but they made it a lot thinner so it would actually burn out. It's just ridiculous. So let's talk about electroculture. This is fascinating to me, and then I'm going to tie it into something that you may or may not know. But the electroculture is really fascinating, and this seems to be really taking off. But scientifically, for the nerds that have to see it, it's actually provable also.
Yes, so Electroculture has been going crazy. Our videos have been going nuts. One of our videos hit, I think, 1 million views the other day, and it just keeps continuing to grow. People are trying it. Their gardens are going nuts. What they're doing is they're taking, for example, a piece of copper, they're wrapping it with, I'm sorry, a piece of wood. And then taking a piece of copper, wrapping it as a coil, going up into the air, and then the other piece of copper going straight into the soil, and placing that into their garden. And what that is doing is it's working as an electrical conductor to increase the ability for the sap to move through the plant so the nutrients can move better, and then open up the pathways. And then as well as an antenna that is gathering the atmospheric energy that's all around us, right? You're picking up on the Earth's energy, the beautiful frequencies that are all around us. And what happens is you start to grow more food, you start to yield quicker food, right? The food comes quicker. They become frost resistant, heat resistant. You actually start to get a lot less insects and pests, right? Because they only come around when things need to be cleaned up. That's kind of what the insects are doing. They see these spectrums, and they come in there to either clean up the soil or basically repair in Mother Earth. But it's been going absolutely crazy. I put up probably, I don't know how many success stories. We had a lady just put up a video about 10 minutes ago, just before this interview, but just huge differences where, for example, the same plants, one is this large, like all the way up on this side, and the other one is this large, and this one's barely sprouted. And these were both planted at the same time. And this one's already 2 to 3 times the size. And this was all shown with the work of Justin Christoflo, Victor Schauberger, and George Lakhovsky. Those were the 3 people in the 1900s who were showing all of this work. But after the resets of pretty much lost, and then we moved into big chemical farming instead, because that was what was the result. Is after they had all these chemicals, they said we should place this all over the soil. And as they did that, now we have all these health issues because we're eating poisoned food. So electroculture comes in there. It can remove all of the nonsense that we've been doing. It gets rid of the pesticides. It gets rid of the chemicals. We're just using the energy, like we were talking about in the beginning, that's all around us, and we're harnessing that.
It's amazing. So you don't physically have to attach it to electricity because it's just generating from the atmosphere. Is that correct? And from the soil?
Yes, and there are studies where they did do tests where they put electricity in the plant, and it actually worked out not so good in the long term, right? Because the plant is taking in Rockefeller's dirty electric. That's the best way to describe it. So it's best to stick with just the energy that's coming out the earth. And I had a lady, she took a voltmeter and she connected it up to her antenna to show that she was getting about 1 to 2 volts just from the earth, just from the soil on its own. So if you add additional, plants obviously don't like that. That's the best way to describe it.
Right. No, this is fascinating. So have you, so you can get sometimes 2, 3, 4 times the size and volume in your crop. Is that correct?
Pretty much. It's either you're going to get a larger crop, or you're going to get a faster growing crop, or you're going to get fruit. Let's say if you're doing fruit, just to make it simple, you might get fruit 4 times in the same time that you maybe got fruit 2 times last year, right? So you might double or triple the amount of times in which you're having fruiting. And I say that because I had quite a few people who messaged me who they have gotten fruit in like March, when they normally get fruit in August, September, October, and they're getting it well in advance. So they're like, I'm going to get double or triple probably this year just because of trying the electroculture.
Do you see an application in greenhouses, or does it have to go into the actual ground?
So with the greenhouses, normally what they do is they put it into the ground, and usually it depends. You can put it in the center, right? Because the other nice thing about the greenhouse application is when the sun goes to reflect right through the greenhouse and hit that copper, for example, what it does is it casts the same color spectrum as the sun into your greenhouse. So not only are you getting that beautiful energy from the earth, from connecting it into the ground, but now you're also getting the reflection of the copper color, which is the color spectrum of the sun, which, as we know, they're always trying to block, right? We're always getting rid of that beautiful sunset or sunrise. That's that golden hue. And that golden hue is very important for the plants. So you get that beautiful color as well. So you're not only amplifying the energy in your greenhouse, but you're giving them the color spectrum to help assist the plant life as well.
Wow. That is cool. Do you see any farmers that are saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to start implementing this, or at least testing it, or is this still kind of a private industry?
So about last year, when I kind of put up the first video of just a stick and a piece of copper in my balcony moringa plant, it kind of wasn't taking off. Like it just kind of seemed kind of new. But now I have farmers who've been reaching out to me, orchards, actually Southern California, tons of them, Northern California, all different parts all over the world, all over Australia. Australia's also doing it as well. But pretty much everybody just trying it out and doing different types of antennas, creating different sizes, mixing together the electroculture with basalt, which is volcanic clay. I have people using frequencies and sound waves, right? They call themselves frequency farmers. So they're using different things related to sound waves. But yeah, it's really taken off where people are experimenting and trying it. And I get probably hundreds of messages a day of people going to the hardware store and going, are you trying the Electroculture thing? And then people reaching out, yeah, that's why I'm buying the copper. I saw that, whatever. So it's happening. And then as people are getting results, they want to share it with other people so that they're aware, and like I said, it takes away from us just buying poison, right? Because that's what they mostly sell.
Yeah. So this can be an industry changer, which clearly the cabal wouldn't like. Have you seen any attacks or threats or messing with your stuff to this point?
The only thing I've seen is there was a copper shortage, which was funny. That was a lot. And then they're putting up some different articles up on Yahoo that I saw that, like, if you wear copper, you're going to somehow connect to the internet, which, doesn't make any sense.
So these are their scare tactics,
so
right?
Something, and I was like, really? Like, people wore copper since the dawn of time, it's just whatever. But yeah, just some goofy stuff, but nothing crazy. But yes, it does compete, like you said, against all of the pesticides and these sprays and Monsanto, and DDT is good for me, right? All the nonsense in which we've been told, it really competes up against that.
Yeah, which is great. Have you ever heard of something called deuterium?
The water. Yeah, the water.
Yeah, so one of the videos I did, the original Watch the Water video, was the video on deuterium, not this whole snake stuff. And it exposed deuterium as, so we run about 155 parts per million in our water worldwide. And when I say worldwide, it's everywhere. It's rampant, all the oceans and all the lakes, so on and so forth. There's a couple places on Earth that it's not in. They run 110 to 120, and these people live till like they're in their 120s. So what they did is they did some tests on this in Russia and some other places, where they took DDW, deuterium depleted water, and put it in the soil when they were growing their plants, and they know they would get 2 to 3 times the size of it. So it'd be interesting to see if we can connect all these things, because I've also studied Dr. Emoto, and I love frequencies, right? It'd be amazing if we can get to a point soon where we could put the frequencies, put your Electroculture in, use DDW, and let's see how amazing and massive and healthy would these plants be. I'm very excited to see the future in regards to that.
Well, I think what you just said too is that's the secret to the 2,000-pound pumpkins, right? I think that's when I've done all this research and looked into all these books on this topic and everything related. That's what they understood, right? There was the magnetism, you had the volcanic ash, you had frequencies, you had, they understood all this stuff. And yeah, that's how they made the 2,000-pound pumpkin. And it's funny because those usually grow. I think they grew one up in Alaska, which Alaska has a ton of volcanic clay, ton of energy. And then also you're on a huge ley line, right? Which is just amplifying. It's a vortex amplifying your yield. And they just plotted it and plant it. And then, like you said, if you add all the things in which you just mentioned too, you could take, that's the thing. I realized we could take farming to a whole nother level in which you only need a small amount of space. You don't need these Monsanto aero gardens and all these weird things that
right.
They're, vertical, whatever. No, we can actually just use the soil and stick to the soil, because a lot of these practices in which we're using now are removing the soil, which, that's one thing. Like, the soil is crucial because it has that energy, and we need to stick with Mother Nature over anything else that's very strange and weird. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm really, really excited about this. What's the best website that people can see your videos, or would it be a Facebook page? Where would you recommend sending them?
We have a great website. It's cultivateelevate.com/electroculture. And there's a great page, and I have everything from what is, how to do it, pictures, videos, podcasts, information.
While you've been talking, I've been featuring your website just so people could see it. And guys, the link is below, just so you know, in the description. So, Matt, I was told by a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, that you may know something about one of my favorite subjects, and that's Tartaria.
Oh, yes. That's a hot topic right now. And yeah, everything. Well, and when we relate to these antennas, right, those were what were all attached to the old world buildings. All we're kind of doing is we're bringing them back. And a lot of the times with all of these old world buildings related to Tartaria, they had all these, they were called lightning rods, but they don't
Mhm.
work in the way they were told. But they're lightning rods, and those were actually balancing out the atmosphere above and also harnessing the energy above, because there's so much free energy up above in the air. And
Mhm.
that's what these antennas are doing, but they're relating back to the old world times in which these thousands of antennas used to be all over buildings. And now we're bringing those back. So we're beginning to harmonize our areas and then also resurface all of the old world designs and Tartaria and all of the beautiful stained glass windows and antennas and all those things that used to be covered all over everything.
So, when I started studying Tartaria, I went from star forts to energy centers, or their energy antennas, so on and so forth. And where I feel like I'm at now is, I think, especially the old churches, I think these are frequency healing centers because of the sacred geometry that's inside, and with the way they conduct the frequencies. They've actually taken out, many people don't understand, is some of the stained glass is in there on purpose, because it got rid of some conductors and some sacred geometry they had there, because the way the sound would resonate inside, they could screw with it just by taking out a couple things and adding things. I'm a rookie on this. Do you think there's any truth to that theory that I have, that they were more like healing centers?
So there's quite a lot of things in related to the old churches, and it's just, yeah, the cathedrals, everything. So first and foremost, what you described is, the stained glass windows, all the different colors and different elements that are all in there. What's interesting about the stained glass windows is I watched a video that explained that when you walk into, for example, that church, whatever is on the stained glass window or the design on the wall, your water and in your body structures to that exact image.
Wow.
And they've done this where they basically took it was like a microphone and a frequency microphone, and they would just leave it on silent. There was no sounds, nothing being played, and they would pick up the same design as what was on the walls on the frequency microphone that they were using. So, your body takes on whatever you're around. Then on top of that, you also have a lot of water that runs underneath all of those buildings, right? You have primary water, the water we are never running out of. That's the ley lines that are underneath that. So that's creating energy, right? And it works as a vortex. So it can be very healing. And then also, too, you used to have all the pipe organs, which used to be in all of these different
Oh yeah.
buildings,
2,
churches.
3, 4 stories tall sometimes, and they ripped them all out.
Yep. And when those played, sound frequency can cause healing. Sound frequency can also generate energy. So let's just say at the top of these buildings, there used to be a mercury ball. There was a little brass ball, and then
Right.
there would be, let's say, a cross or an antenna on top of it. But there was a mercury ball in between. When that frequency goes up and it hits it with the sound, it can cause whatever's inside that mercury, or whatever's inside the ball, such as mercury, to vibrate and spin. That vibration and spin can actually can create energy. And actually, I'm going to do a video showing this very soon. But with that, you have that up on top, and then it's also getting beamed with sun. And then as the sun is hitting that building, because of the materials that it's based out of, that amplifies the energy as well. And there were some videos that I saw that showed that some of these old churches used to have steam turbines inside of them in the center, and they removed a lot of those out. Right. So, it's when you get into all of this and you see, like what you said, certain pieces of, let's say, the church has been removed, right? And then they put new pieces in there. A lot of the stuff in which was anything related to healing or energy has been removed, because I always think about it this way. If you played those pipe organs, right, just maybe one time, just think of how large of an area could be covered with just playing a couple notes. You might wake up the whole town like with, just pushing a couple notes or whatever. And then all of a sudden, who knows what happens to your consciousness too, right? It almost can work like a portal or a way to communicate between each other in different areas. And this was shown with Philip Callahan's work with his Celtic round towers. All the Celtic round towers in Ireland, he was explaining that monks used to go up to the top of them and use them as a radio frequency antenna to communicate amongst each other when they would go into a meditation. And it was interesting because he was like, why would you go to a top of a tower if you're going to be attacked or whatever else? But he was saying that they would go up in there to go to a meditation so that they could communicate amongst each other. And each tower was synced up to directly to the stars, right? So when we look at this whole infrastructure, because that's the best way to say it, of all these things that are occurring related to old world Tartaria, churches, mosques, temples, sacred buildings, all these things, you sit there and wonder if people were supposedly, that's what they told us, on horse and wagon at that time, how were they building in such intricate designs and using such beautiful materials and crafting, metal crafting out of gold, silver, brass, bronze, all these materials, iron. Like, how did you sit and, do this and draw? And it almost looks like someone took their hands and sculpted these buildings instead of actually building them, almost like they were just, we'll just do like this and have a design rather than actually physically building them. And I think that's also the energy principle of these buildings as well, too.
Yeah, well, I can buy what you're selling there, because I really believe the big blocks in Egypt to build the pyramids were pushed around with frequencies. I don't think they had pulling a block up and it was perfectly mitered and put into place. And we already know frequencies can lift things. We just don't tap into it properly currently. Isn't it fun though to see in just the last couple of years that people are just starting to really be openly want to go for it when it comes to all this new stuff like the electroculture and the frequencies and so on and so forth. To me, it's just, I'm so excited to see, not that I'm excited, but I'm excited to see that everybody else is excited.
I think it's a really big stepping stone in humanity, right? Because I mean, if you think about it, between the educational system, which is very boring, right? It's owned by the Rockefellers. It's meant to be boring for a reason.
Yep.
So with between that and everything that we faced, especially in 2020 and 2021, and all the nonsense and everything else, I think people are just over it, and I think people are wanting to try something new. And it makes me excited for people to actually move into things that are new and experiment and use their creativity and get into the soil and do these things, and then maybe research these old world buildings and kind of just let their mind flow, right? And even kids. I have a lot of people now who are teaching their kids about electroculture and explaining it to them. And the kids, they're 10 years old and they completely understand it. They're like, the plant is back to life. I put a stick in it. The energy is there. They understand it because their mind has not been, kind of shut down a little bit. So I think it's amazing that all these things are occurring, and it's only going to lead us into different doors, right? Because they've done a lot with just trying to divide us and disconnect us. But this is uniting, right? I see the uniting movement that's occurring from this with electroculture. I get tagged and post and repost and people and telling their friends and family and all these things. And it connects us in a different way so that we're not sitting and just arguing with each other all the time, because that's never going to get us anywhere, right? And we're starting to use our creative sides, which have turned off due to a lot of the times too much technology. We're not being connected into the soil and watching things and learning and observing nature, right? And that's what Victor Schauberger's work was all about, observing nature, understanding nature. And when you look at his technology and the things that he created, I mean, in the 1940s, I mean, you'd be blown away that all of that was being created at that time, but we've lost that. So this kind of, I think, opens up the doors and brings that back.
Yeah, it does. And it's in when you were speaking, I did something. I'm going to recommend everybody else to this. I went to your website with your blog. I'm assuming you sent it out on your newsletter also, right?
Yes, we usually say newsletter with some information, what's going on new with us, maybe related to a new video, which was related to those as well too, or some new recipes, new stuff related to electroculture, all different types of topics.
Beautiful. So let's real quick. I know we're both on limited time, but it says right here, sun energy, sunglasses, eyesight, so on and so forth. Let's talk about this, because this is a very, very interesting one to me, because most of us grew up, don't look into the sun. And now we hear, hey, it's good to look into the sun, if you right first thing in the morning or right when the sun's going down. you got to use sunblock. Well, no, looks like sunblock blocks out the let's talk about this because we are in a transition right now, and it's like I believe personally that we were sold on everything in order to harm us, not hurt us. I believe it's completely 100% intentional. I don't have my tinfoil hat today, but that's my belief system. Other people believe it's just money. I believe it's pretty sinister. What are your thoughts on give us on the sun and the effects that we're trying to avoid, it seems like?
So that goes into keeping us away from nature, right? The sun frequencies can heal just about anything. Just being in the sun for hours can heal the body from almost every single ailment. This is why they never publish any studies related to the benefits of sun, because the benefits of sun can heal you from everything. This was shown in the book with Dr. John Ott, Health and Light, where he explained where multiple different people who had, for example, terminal illnesses, all different types of ailments, were put out into the sun, right? The husband or wife said, I'm going to just have you sit outside because it's your last days and whatever else, and just sit out in the sun and read a book. And, that can be your time to go and whatever else. And within about 3 months, the person who was having the illness or terminal illness, it was completely reversed. And the professionals at that time were completely mind boggled because they're like, what were you doing? And the wife said, I just was sitting outside in the sun reading a book. And this competes against our system that we currently have, which, like you said, is greed, and about money, and keeping people sick and blocking the sun, right? The sun provides us with UV frequencies, which are actually very healing, right? If you look at the healthiest cultures in the world, they're usually up on a mountaintop, number one, and they're exposed to the most UV, and they have the least amount of illnesses. So if the UVs were harmful, they would be the first to go, but they're usually the healthiest society or healthiest cultures on the planet. And, when we take all this SPF, right, which is a petroleum-based product that's used to block out all the frequencies, what happens is our body cannot detox. It cannot get rid of the toxins. When you sit out in the sun, you're getting rid of everything, and your cells are energizing, right? When you remove the energy from your body, which is the beautiful sun energy, you get weak, you get fatigued, you get tired, you get lethargic, you can't think properly, right? That's why they always said, like, just go, run with your friends out in nature and go to a park and come back. And the kids are all going all crazy because they're getting all that sun energy. When they're surrounded by artificial lights, they're never getting those full spectrums. That's where the sunglasses come in. That's where the SPF comes in. That's where the windshields come in. That's where these windows come in. They all block the UV spectrum. Every single one of those blocks the UV spectrum, which is told to us as dangerous. But what happens is when we don't get that UV spectrum, our eyes actually start to fall apart. That's why people, when they wear glasses for long periods of time, their eyes actually get weaker because the UV spectrum is constantly being blocked from getting into their eyes, so their eyes cannot regenerate. And this goes into sun gazing, which is looking at that beautiful sunset and when the sun rises and when the sun's going down, getting all those red hues. And if you remember back in the day, they used to have these like UV lights where they would put these like glasses and get all this UV, the color spectrums. That's what they were trying to replicate. But when we are told this whole, the sun is dangerous thing, what they don't talk about, which is the most interesting thing, and this was in the book, The Invisible Rainbow, they said since the increase of frequencies in our environment, such as Wi-Fi technology, TVs, which emit X-rays, which is nuts, TVs, all these different things, the skin issues that people have been suffering from have gone through the roof. And this was even prior to, telling them to stay out of the sun and everything else. They were actually getting all of this information. So when we look at it, it's you're getting sold one way over here that the sun is doing all of this and it's causing all this damage and blah, blah, blah. But we're not looking over here at we're amplifying the terrain with 3G, 4G, 5G, 2G, whatever, all these things. And then, all these different cellular devices, routers, things, and blah, 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 which can actually adversely impact the skin, right? Because if the skin can't heal, it's going to start to develop a wound. As that wound gets worse and worse, it starts to grow. and it starts to spread. And other cells are basically picking up on that. And this was shown in the book, like I was saying, Health and Light by Dr. John Ott and The Invisible Rainbow. And it completely made me realize we've been just sold. That's like you said, just sold something and told something. And then they used all the fancy marketing of the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, right? Put the SPF all over, little Johnny shouldn't go outside without any SPF and all these things. But when you look at the actual ingredients of SPF, right, and you look at the ingredients label, you are pretty much taking petroleum, fragrance, and other neurotoxins, placing it onto the skin and baking it into your skin, which would actually cause a plethora of health issues as well. Right. So yeah, it's just, when you get into this topic, it's just wild about how we've been switched. But the sunglasses were also a big one, because the sunglasses of the frame is blocking the pineal gland. If this area of your center of your face does not get sun, your melatonin levels get completely thrown off and you can't fall asleep. So if we go sit out in the sun and we, block our face and don't get the UV rays, we're doing the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing by sitting out in the sun. So it's a complete inversion of the cycle. And like I said, if you look at the healthiest people in the world, they're exposed to more sun than anybody, right? They're always in the sun. So, it's the complete opposite. But those studies, like I said, are sponsored by big companies who are funding the research in the way in which they want it to be safe. Just like the cell phone studies and everything else, they fund the safe studies so that they can sell the product to the people, which then creates additional industries for them to make money.
Yeah, that's another Rockefeller deal, by the way, that they always create the problem solution and the whole fakery. So here's my question: for a person like me that loves the sun, I love to snorkel, haven't done it in a while, what would you recommend for some, because I still burn if I don't wear anything. What would you recommend for somebody like me with fair skin like that?
You could do either coconut oil or carrot seed oil. Carrot seed oil has a natural protectant in it, and that's very beneficial. Some people have used zinc oxide as well, but you have to be careful that it's not the nano zinc oxide. But also building up just a base tan, that's a really big thing. If you just, go out, let's say 8 a.m., when the sun is first up, you get that just a very little shade, so it's not too crazy. You can build up a great base tan before you go out there and just cook, and that's the thing. And then as you build up that base tan, you can then progress that and go as many hours as you want. And the other thing too is, if you want, you can check the UV spectrum, so you can kind of know what's going on outside as well. Because if, for example, you haven't tanned in a long period of time, don't spend 8 hours just cooking, unless you're obviously out with friends and you're on a boat or something. But that's the other thing. Care for your skin as well too. And that's where I talk a lot about with our pearl powder, of how you can hydrate the skin, because a lot of times with all this frequency situation going on, the hydration is being impacted on the skin, which leads to the skin ailments as people are having as well, because they're losing the hydration. So the connective tissues start falling apart as well.
So my intention is never to get on here and help people sell products, but you're so fascinating, and it looks like you actually have solutions on your websites for a lot of things that we talk about. So let me share the screen real quick.
Provide a solution to the pathway that's being bombarded by X, Y, and Z, and then also provide additional solutions in the home, such as swapping out, let's say, LEDs for incandescents, things that people can do that they can do on a home level that doesn't even just relate to the products as well, just overall terrain. Because I realized if we all take initiatives in each different way, then how can we be stopped? How can we be stopped, right? Because we're all doing it in our home. For example, if a whole community removed Wi-Fi, right, that whole community would instantaneously change their frequency overnight. And that's the thing, is there are things that can be done. And that's why I'm big on trying to find solutions, whether it's our food, whether it's our home, whether it's our clothes, the materials that we're sleeping in, right? The material, the frequencies that we're being impacted by, all of the above as a well-rounded spectrum, so that there's solutions for everybody.
Beautiful, beautiful. So folks, if you want to go to his website, it's cultivateelevate.com. It is in the description. There's not an affiliate link. I get nothing out of this. I was just fascinated by his information and the fact that he sells products at the same time for our solutions. I love. So feel free to support Matt. It looks really cool. At least go to his blog because the information is fantastic. Matt, we're kind of getting at the end of the hour. Is there anything you wanted to add on to this? By the way, thank you very much. It's the first time we ever met, and this is the type of information we need, because I tell people we're in the transition to greatness, and this is how we get there. Is we need to make sure that we're at optimum health.
And that's the one thing. Your health is your wealth. You know, my grandma used to say that to me all the time. It's the only thing that you own. You know, so we really need to take that back. And I realized if we take back our health and are the healthiest we can be, we are unstoppable, right? What are the things, all of these things we mentioned today are impacting the food supply, impacting our health, impacting our brain, our digestion, right? All these things are impacting us at the cellular level. The intent is to impact the cells so that we are a weakened society, which is much easier to take advantage of, right?
Mhm.
Because if everybody is frail and weak, it's easy to tell them what to do. But if we are strong and we are powerful, then it's a whole different story. But related back to the electroculture, because that's what we were first talking about, just, you know, like I said, we have a great website on it, but just try it, right? You have nothing to lose and only things to gain. And all of our systems in which we've been told with all of this iron, right? And that goes back into it. The whole reason I got into this is I read an article, and this was where it all started, about Victor Schauberger. And I'll just say this for a minute.
Sure.
But basically in the 1940s, right, Victor Schauberger presented all of this information that I'm presenting to you in 1941 to the Bulgarian government. He said, I will make you all the copper tools, all the copper gardening tools, all the copper plows, everything that you need out of copper. I have all the designs. He presented this to the Bulgarian government at this time, and they said, we cannot do that. And he said, why not? Like, I'm showing you it works. These people are yielding so much food. They basically said, well, I have a kickback from the fertilizer company, and that's going to impede against that, and I'm not going to get any money. So what happened is the next day, because Victor Schauberger said, well, then I'm not working with you because, you know, clearly we're not seeing eye to eye. They put out a broadcast on the radio and on the newspaper to all the farmers, right? They sent it to every farmer in the region through the EU. And they told them that if you use these copper tools, you're going to yield too much food and you're not going to make enough money.
Oh,
And that pretty much went out, and all the
wow.
farmers said, oh, we're not doing any of this then. Like, if I'm going to lose my money, right, I'm going to lose my livelihood.
Right.
So everybody who was using iron tools at that time continued to use the iron, which leads to drought issues and clumpy soil and less yield over time. So what came next? The chemicals, right? They sold them the chemicals, while Victor Schauberger presented all of this in the 1940s. And when I read that excerpt from the book that I was reading, that's when I started making videos, because I thought, we deal with so much nonsense of food shortages and all this other whatever baloney, and there's always been a solution. It just was never talked about because the information was suppressed, and purposely suppressed. So that started my whole electroculture thing and why I got into all of this. But at the end of the day, try it, see how it works. You can combine it with basalt and bird sounds if you want to take it to another level. You can also add some quartz and different stones too. But just, you know, experiment. Use the creative side in which we've turned off, and get back into it and connect with nature, because nature needs it. And if we don't take care of nature, nobody else is coming to save nature. That's kind of how I see it, right? And they're trying to do all this weird stuff with disconnecting our food and shipping it all over, and we're losing the life force. It's losing its life force and its nutritional value. And this can, in my opinion, bring all that back.
Wow. Way to tie a little bow on it at the end. I appreciate it. Matt, this is fascinating. I hope to have you back on. You are welcome to come back on. This is a much needed conversation for people. And I believe people are open to this like they've never been before. So fun times ahead. Thank you again, folks. All of his links are down below. All of my links are down below. Appreciate your time. Anybody asking? Yes, I'm going right back from here. Going to have lunch, and I'm going to be working on the documentary. My goal is to get that done before I head out to Hawaii. So look for that documentary pretty soon. Cages. Thank you, Matt. Take care.
No problem. I'll see you.
Bye, everybody. Takes about 10 to 15 seconds to clear. Let you know when we're cleared.